Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? And unfortunately, Edgar Soto just beat you. But you are still second. When we last left off, Frodo had just awoken in Rivendell. And now we are up to the Council of Elrond, finally. After all these months. I just need a mouthful of water, and then we will be good to begin. Alright, let us see. So we are up to page 268. Next day, Frodo woke early, feeling refreshed and well. He walked along the terraces above the loud, flowing Brunnen and watched the pale, cool sun rise far above the mountains and shine down, slanting through the thin silver mist. The dew upon the yellow leaves was glimmering. The woven nets of gossamer twinkled on every bush. Sam walked beside him, saying nothing but sniffing the air and looking every now and again with wonder in his eyes at the great heights in the east. The snow was white upon their peaks. On a seat cut in the stone beside a turn in the path, they came upon Gandalf and Bilbo, deep in talk. "Hello, good morning," said Bilbo. "Feel ready for the great council?" "I feel ready for anything," answered Frodo. "But most of all, I should like to go walking today and explore the valley. I should like to get into those pine woods up there." He pointed away, far up the side of Rivendell to the north. "You may have a chance later," said Gandalf, "but we cannot make any plans yet. There is much to hear and decide today." Suddenly, as they were talking, a single clear bell rang out. "That is the warning bell for the Council of Elrond," cried Gandalf. "Come along now. Both you and Bilbo are wanted." Frodo and Bilbo followed the wizard quickly along the winding path back to the house. Behind them, uninvited and for the moment forgotten, trotted Sam. Gandalf led them to the porch where Frodo had found his friends the evening before. The light of the clear autumn morning was now glowing in the valley. The noise of bubbling waters came up from the foaming riverbed. Birds were singing, and a wholesome peace lay on the land. To Frodo, his dangerous flight and the rumors of the darkness growing in the world outside already seemed only the memories of a troubled dream. The faces that were turned to meet them as they entered were grave. Elrond was there. Several others were seated in silence about him. Frodo saw Glorfindel and Gloin, and in a corner alone, Strider was sitting, clad in his old travel-worn clothes again. Elrond drew Frodo to a seat by his side, and presented him to the company, saying, "Here, my friends, is the hobbit, Frodo, son of Drogo. You have ever come hither through greater peril, or on an errand more urgent." He pointed out and named those whom Frodo had not met before. There was a younger dwarf at Gloin's side, his son, Gimli. Beside Glorfindel, there were several other councillors of Elrond's household, of whom Erestor was the chief. And with him was Galdor, an elf from the Grey Havens, who had come on an errand from Círdan the shipwright. There was also a strange elf, clad in green and brown, Legolas, messenger from his father, Thranduil, the king of the elves of northern Mirkwood. And seated a little apart was a tall man with a fair and noble face, dark-haired and grey-eyed, proud and stern of glance. He was cloaked and booted as if for a journey on horseback, and indeed, though his garments were rich and his cloak was lined with fur, they were stained with long travel. He had a collar of silver, in which a single white stone was set. His locks were shorn about his shoulders. On a baldric he wore a great horn tipped with silver, that now was laid upon his knees. He gazed at Frodo and Bilbo with sudden wonder. "Here," said Elrond, turning to Gandalf, "is Boromir, a man from the south. He arrived in the grey morning, and seeks for counsel. I have bidden him to be present, for here his questions will be answered." Not all that was spoken and debated in the council need now be told. Much was said of events in the world outside, especially in the south, and in the wide lands east of the mountains. Of these Frodo had already heard many rumours. The tale of Gloin was new to him, and when the dwarf spoke, he listened attentively. It appeared that amid the splendour of their works, and the hearts of the dwarves and of the lonely mountain were troubled. "It is now many years ago," said Gloin, "that a shadow of disquiet fell upon our people. Whence it came we did not at first perceive. Words began to be whispered in secret. It was said that we were hemmed in a narrow place, that greater wealth and splendour would be found in a wider world. Some spoke of Moria, the mighty works of our fathers that are called in our own tongue Khazad-dûm. And they declared that now at last we had the power and numbers to return." Gloin sighed. "Moria, Moria, wonder of the northern world. Too deep we delved there to mock the nameless fear. Long have its vast mansions laid empty since the children of Durin fled. Now we spoke of it again with longing and yet with dread. For no dwarf has dared to pass the doors of Khazad-dûm for many lives of kings, save Thror only, and he perished. At last, however, Balin listened to the whispers and resolved to go. And though Dain did not give leave willingly, he took with him Ori and Oin and many of our folk, and they went away south. That was nigh on 30 years ago. For a while we had news, and it seemed good. Messages reported that Moria had been entered, and a great work began there. Then there was silence, and no word has come from Moria ever since. Then, about a year ago, a messenger came to Dain, but not from Moria, from Mordor, a horseman in the night who called Dain to his gate. The Lord Sauron the Great, so he said, wished for our friendship. Rings he would give for it, such as he gave of old. He asked urgently concerning hobbits, what kind they were, and where they dwelt. "For Sauron knows," said he, "that one of these was known to you on a time." At this we were greatly troubled, and we gave no answer, and then his fell voice was lowered, and he would have sweetened it if he could. "As a token only of your friendship, Sauron asked this," he said, "that you should find this thief. Such was his word, and get from him, willing or no, a little ring, the least of rings that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and an earnest of your goodwill. Find it, the 3 rings that the dwarf sires possessed of old shall be returned to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Find only news of the thief, that he still lives, and where, you shall have great reward and lasting friendship from the Lord. Refuse, and things will not seem so well. Do you refuse?" At that his breath came like a hiss of snakes, and all who stood by shuddered. Dain said, "I say neither yea nor nay. I must consider this message, and what it means under its fair cloak." "Consider well, but not long," said he. "The time of my thought is mine own to spend," answered Dain. "For the present," said he, and rode into darkness. Heavy have the hearts of our chieftains been since that night, We needed not the fell voice of the messenger to warn us that his words held both menace and deceit. For we knew already that the power that has re-entered Mordor has not changed, and ever betrayed us of old. Twice the messenger has returned, and has gone unanswered. The third and last time, so he says, is soon to come, before the ending of the year. And so I have been sent at last by Dane to warn Bilbo that he is sought by the enemy, and to learn, if may be, why he desires this ring, this least of rings. Also, we crave the advice of Elrond. The shadow grows and draws near. We discover that messengers have come also to King Brandon, and that he is afraid. We fear that he may yield. Already war is gathering on his eastern borders, and if we make no answer, the enemy may move men of his rule to assail King Brandon also. You have done well to come, said Elrond. You will hear today all that you need in order to understand the purposes of the enemy. There is naught that you can do other than to resist, with hope or without. You do not stand alone. You will learn that your trouble is but part of the trouble of all the Western world. The ring. What shall we do with the ring, the least of rings, the trifle that Sauron fancies? That is the doom that we must deem. That is the purpose for which you are called hither. Bold, I say, though I have not called you to me, strangers from distant lands. You have come and are here met, in this very nick of time, by chance as it may seem. Yet it is not so. Believe, rather, that it is so ordered that we, who sit here, and none others, must now find counsel for the peril of the world. Now, therefore, things shall be openly spoken that have been hidden from all but a few until this day. And first, so that all may understand what is the peril, the tale of the ring shall be told from the beginning, even to this present. I will begin the tale. Others shall end it. Then all listened, while Elrond, in his clear voice, spoke of Sauron and the rings of power, and their forging in the second age of the world long ago. A part of his tale was known to some there, the tale in full to none, and many eyes were turned to Elrond in fear and wonder, as he told of the elven smiths of Eregion, and their friendship with Moria, and their eagerness for knowledge, by which Sauron ensnared them. For in that time he was not yet evil to behold, and they received his aid and grew mighty in craft, whereas he learned all their secrets and betrayed them, and forged secretly in the mountain of fire the one ring to be their master. But Celebrimbor was aware of him, and hid the three which he had made. And there was war, and the land was laid waste, and the gate of Moria was shut. Then, through all the years that followed, he traced the ring, since that history is elsewhere recounted, even as Elrond himself set it down in his books of lore. It is not here recalled, for it is a long tale, full of deeds great and terrible. And briefly there Elrond spoke. The sun rode up the sky, and the morning was passing ere he ceased. Of Númenor he spoke, its glory and its fall, and the return of the kings of men to Middle-earth, out of the depths of the sea, borne upon the wings of a storm. Then Elendil the Tall, and his mighty sons Isildur and Anarion, became great lords, and the north realm they made in Arnor, and the south realm in Gondor above the mouths of the Anduin. Sauron of Mordor assailed them, and they made the last alliance of elves and men, and the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil were mustered in Arnor. Thereupon Elrond paused a while and sighed. I remember well the splendour of their banners, he said. It recalled to me the glory days of the Eldar, and the hosts of Beleriand. So many great princes and captains were assembled, and yet not so many, nor so fair, as when Thangorodrim was broken. The elves deemed that evil was ended forever, and it was not so. You remember, said Frodo, speaking his thought aloud in astonishment. But I thought, he stammered as Elrond turned towards him. thought that the fall of Gil-galad was a long age ago. So it was indeed, answered Elrond gravely. But my memory reaches back even to the Eldar days. Eärendil was my sire, who was born in Gondolin before its fall. And my mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien of Doriath. I have seen 3 ages in the west of the world, and many defeats and many fruitless victories. I was the herald of Gil-galad, and marched with his host. I was at the Battle of Dagorlad before the Black Gate of Mordor, and we had the mastery. The spear of Gil-galad and the sword of Elendil, Aeglos and Narsil, none could withstand. I beheld the last combat on the slopes of Orodruin, where Gil-galad died and Elendil fell, and Narsil broke beneath him. Sauron himself was overthrown, and Isildur cut the ring from his hand with the hilt shard of his father's sword, took it for his own. At this the stranger Boromir broke in. "So that is what became of the ring," he cried. "If ever such a tale was told in the south, it has long been forgotten. I have heard of the great ring of him we do not name, but we believe that it perished from the world in the ruin of his first realm. Isildur took it. That is tidings indeed." "Alas, yes," said Elrond. "Isildur took it. I should not have been. It should have been cast into Orodruin's fire, nigh at hand where it was made. Few marked what Isildur did. He alone stood by his father in that last mortal contest, and by Gil-galad only Círdan stood, and I. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. This I will have as a were-guild for my father and my brother," he said, "and therefore, whether we would or no, he took it to treasure it, but soon he was betrayed by it to his death, and so it is named in the north Isildur's Bane. His death maybe was better than what else might have befallen him." Only to the north did these tidings come, and only to a few. Small wonder it is that you have not heard them, Boromir. From the ruin of the Galadan fields where Isildur perished, 3 men only ever came back over the mountains after long wandering. One of those was Otar, the esquire of Isildur, who bore the shards of the sword of Elendil. He brought to them Valandil, the heir of Isildur, who, being but a child, has remained here in Rivendell. Narsil was broken, and its light extinguished, and it has not yet been reforged again. Fruitless did I call the victory of the last alliance? Not so wholly. Yet it did not achieve its end. Sauron was diminished but not destroyed. His ring was lost but not unmade. The Dark Tower was broken, but its foundations were not removed. For they were made with the power of the ring, and while it remains they will endure. Many elves and many mighty men, and many of their friends have perished in the war, and Miriam was slain, and Isildur was slain, and Gil-galad and Elendil were no more. Never again shall there be any such league of elves and men, for men multiply, and the firstborn decrease, and the 2 kindreds are estranged. And ever since that day, the race of Númenor has decayed, and the span of their years have lessened. In the north, after the war and the slaughter of the Gladden fields, the men of Westerness were diminished, and the city of Annúminas beside Lake Evandin fell into ruin, and the heirs of Valandil removed and dwelt at Fornast on the high north downs. And now that too is desolate. Men call it Dead Man's Dyke, and they fear to travel there. The folk of Arnor dwindled, and their foes devoured them, and their lordship passed, leaving only green mounds and grassy hills. In the south, the realm of Gondor has long endured. For a while its splendor grew, recalling somewhat of the might of Númenor ere it fell. High towers that people built, and strong places, and havens of many ships, and winged crowns, the kings of men were held in awe by folk of many tongues. It was the chief city was of Osgiliath, citadel of the stars, through the midst of which the river flowed, and Menes Ithil they built, the tower of the rising moon, eastward upon the shoulder of the mountains of shadow, and westward at the feet of the white mountains, Minas Anor they made, Tower of the Setting Sun. There in the courts of the king grew a white tree, and the seed of that tree, which Isildur brought over the deep waters, and the seed of that tree before came from Eresia, and before that out of the uttermost west in the day before days, in the world of Xi'an. But in the wearing of the swift years of Middle-earth, the line of Meneldil, son of Anarion, failed, and the tree withered. The blood of the Númenóreans became mingled with that of the lesser men. Then the watch upon the walls of Mordor slept, and dark things crept back to Gorgoroth. And on a time, evil things came forth, and they took Minas Ithil and abode in it, and they made it into a place of dread. It is called Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. Then Minas Anor was named anew Minas Tirith, the Tower of God, and these two cities were ever at war. But Osgiliath, which lay between, was deserted, and in its ruins shadows walked. So it has been for many lives of men. The lords of Minas Tirith still fight on, defying our enemies, keeping the passage of the river from Argonath to the sea. Now that part of the tale that I shall tell is drawn to its close, for in the days of Isildur the ruling ring passed out of all knowledge, and the three were released from its domain. But now in this latter day they are in peril once more, for to our sorrow the one has been found. Others shall speak of its finding, for in that I played small part. I will be back in just a moment. There we go. Hello, I return. Now let us continue. He ceased, but at once Boromir stood up, tall and proud, before him. "Give me leave, Master Elrond," said he. First to say more of Gondor, for verily from the land of Gondor I am come, and it would be well for all to know what passes there. For few, I deem, know of our deeds, and therefore guess little of their peril, if we should fail at last. Believe not that in the land of Gondor the blood of Numenor is spent, nor all its pride and dignity forgotten. By our valor the wild folk of the east are still restrained, and the terror of Morgul kept at bay, and thus alone are peace and freedom maintained in the lands behind us, bulwark of the west. But if the passages of the river should be won, what then? Yet that hour, maybe, is not far away. The nameless enemy has arisen again. Smoke rises once more from Urd ruin that we call Mount Doom. The power of the Black Land grows, and we are hard beset. When the enemy returned, our folk were driven from Ithilien, our fair domain east of the river, that we kept a foothold there and strength of arms. This very year, in the days of June, sudden war came upon us out of Mordor, and we were swept away. We were outnumbered, for Mordor has allied itself with the Easterlings and the cruel Haradrim. But it was not by numbers that we were defeated. Power was there that we have not felt before. Some said it could be seen, like a great black horseman, a dark shadow under the moon. Wherever he came, a madness filled our foes. Fear fell on our boldest, so that horse and man gave way and fled. Only a remnant of our eastern force came back, destroying the last bridge that still stood amid the ruins of Osgiliath. I was in the company that held the bridge until it was cast down behind us. 4 only were saved by swimming, my brother and myself and 2 others, but still we fight on, holding all the west shores of Anduin, and those who shelter behind us give us praise. For if ever they hear our music, much praise. For if ever they hear our name, much praise but little help. Only from Rohan now will any man ride to us when we call. In this evil hour I have come on an errand over many dangerous leagues to Elrond. 110 days I have journeyed all alone, but I do not seek allies in war. Journeyed all alone, the might of Elrond is in wisdom, not in weapons. It is said, I come to ask for counsel and the unravelling of hard words. For on the eve of the sudden assault a dream came to my brother. In a troubled sleep, and afterwards a light dream came oft to him again, and once to me. In that dream I thought the eastern sky grew dark, and there was a growing thunder, but in the west a pale light lingered, and out of it I heard her voice, remote but clear, crying, Seek for the sword that was broken, in him Ladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token, doom is near at hand, that Isildur's bane shall awaken, the halfling forth shall stand. Of these words we could understand little, and we spoke to our father Denethor, Lord of Minas Tirith, wise in the lore of Gondor. Only this he would say, that Imladris was of old the name among the elves of a fair northern dale, where Elrond the half-elven dwelt, greatest of the lore-masters. Therefore, my brother, seeing how desperate was our need, was eager to heed the dream and seek for Imladris. Since the way was full of doubt and danger, I took the journey upon myself. Loath was my father to give me leave, and long have I wandered by roads forgotten, seeking the house of Elrond, of which many have heard, but few knew where it lay. And here in the house of Elrond, more shall be made clear to you, said Aragorn, standing up. He cast his sword upon the table that stood before Elrond, and the blade was in 2 pieces. Here is the sword that was broken, he said. And who are you? And what have you to do with Minas Tirith? Asked Boromir, looking in wonder at the lean face of the ranger, and his weather-stained cloak. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, said Elrond, and he is descended through many fathers from Isildur, Elendil, son of Minas Ithil. He is the chief of the Dunedain in the north, and fewer are now left of that folk. And it belongs to you, and not to me at all. cried Frodo in amazement, springing to his feet as if he expected the ring to be demanded at once. It does not belong to either of us, said Aragorn, but it has been ordained that you should hold it for a while. Bring out the ring, Frodo, said Gandalf solemnly. The time has come. Hold it up, and then Boromir will understand the remainder of his riddle. There was a hush, and all turned their eyes on Frodo. He was shaken by a sudden shame and fear, and he felt a great reluctance to reveal the ring, and a loathing of its touch. He wished he was far away. The ring gleamed and flickered as he held it up before them in his trembling hand. Behold, Isildur's bane, said Elrond. Boromir's eyes glinted as he gazed at the golden thing. "The halfling," he muttered. "Is then the doom of Minas Tirith come at last? Why then should we seek a broken sword?" The words were not the doom of Minas Tirith, said Aragorn. The doom and great deeds are indeed at hand. The sword that was broken is the sword of Elendil that broke beneath him when he fell. It has been treasured by his heirs when all other heirlooms were lost, for it was spoken of old among us that it should be made again when the ring, Isildur's bane, was found. Now you have seen the sword that you have sought. What would you ask? Do you wish for the house of Elendil to return to the land of Gondor? I was not sent to beg for any boon, but to seek only the meaning of a riddle, answered Boromir proudly. Yet we are hard-pressed, and the sword of Elendil would be a help beyond our hope, if such a thing could indeed return out of the shadows of the past. He looked again at Aragorn, and doubt was in his eyes. Frodo felt Bilbo stir impatiently at his side. Evidently he was annoyed on his friend's behalf. Standing up suddenly, he burst out. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. When the ashes of a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. Not very good, perhaps, but to the point, if you need more beyond the word of Elrond. That was worth a journey of 110 days to hear. You had best to listen to it. He sat down with a snort. I made that up myself, he whispered to Frodo. For the Dunedain, a long time ago, when he first told me about himself. I almost wished that my adventures were not over, and that I could go with him when his day comes. Aragorn smiled at him, and he turned to Boromir again. For my part, I forgive your doubt, he said. Little do I resemble the figures of Elendil and Isildur, as they stand carven in their majesty in the halls of Denethor. But I am the heir of Isildur, not Isildur himself. I have had a hard life and long, and the leagues that lie between here and Gondor are a small part in the count of my journeys. I've crossed many mountains and many rivers, and trodden many plains even into the far countries of Rhûn and Harad where the stars are strange. But my home, such as I have, is in the north, for here the heirs of Valandil have ever dwelt in long line, unbroken from father unto son for many generations. Our days have darkened, and we have dwindled, but ever the sword has passed to a new keeper. This I will say to you, Boromir, ere I end. Lonely men are we, rangers of the wild, hunters, but hunters ever of the servants of the enemy. They are found in many places, not in Mordor only. If Gondor, Boromir, has been a stalwart tower, we have played another part. Many evil things there are that your strong walls and bright swords do not stay. Know little of the lands beyond your bounds. Peace and freedom, do you say? The North would have known them little but for us. Fear would have destroyed them. But when dark things come from the houseless hills, or creep from sunless woods, they fly from us. What roads would any dare to tread? What safety would there be in quiet lands, or in the homes of simple men at night, if the Dunedain were asleep, or were all gone in the grave? And yet less thanks have we than you. Travellers scowl at us, and countrymen give us scornful names. Strider, I am to one fat man who lives within a day's march of foes that would freeze his heart, or lay his little town in ruin. If we were not guarded ceaselessly, we would not have it otherwise. Simple folk are free from care and fear. Simple they will be, and we must be secret to keep them so. That has been the task of my kindred, while the years have lengthened and the grass has grown. But now the world is changing once again. The new hour comes. Isildur's bane is found. Battle is at hand. The sword shall be reforged. I will come to Minas Tirith. Isildur's bane is found, you say, said Boromir. I have seen a bright ring in the halfling's hand, but Isildur perished ere this age of the world began, they say. How do then the wise know that this ring is his? And how has it passed down the years, till it is brought hither by so strange a messenger? That shall be told, said Elrond. But not yet, I beg, master, said Bilbo. Already the sun is climbing to noon, and I feel the need of something to strengthen me. I had not named you, said Elrond, smiling, but I do so now. Come, tell us your tale, and if you have not yet cast your story into verse, you may tell it in plain words. The briefer, the sooner you shall be refreshed. Very well, said Bilbo. I will do as you bid, but I will now tell the true story. Some here have heard me tell it otherwise. He looked sidelong at Gloin. I asked them to forget it and forgive me. I only wish to claim the treasure as my very own in those days, and to be rid of the name of thief that was put on me. But perhaps I understand things a little better now. Anyway, this is what happened. To some there, Bilbo's tale was wholly new, and they listened with amazement while the old hobbit, actually not all displeased, recounted his adventure with Gollum at full length. He did not omit a single riddle. He would have given also an account of his party and disappearance of the Shire, if he had been allowed. But Elrond raised his hand. Well told, my friend, he said. It is enough at this time. For the moment it suffices to know that the ring passed to Frodo, your heir. Let him now speak. Then, less willingly than Bilbo, Frodo told of all his dealings with the ring from the day that it passed into his keeping. Every step of his journey from Hobbiton to the ford of Brunnen was questioned and considered, and everything that he could recall concerning the Black Riders was examined. At last he sat down again. Not bad, Bilbo said to him. You would have made a good story of it, if they hadn't kept on interrupting. I tried to make a few notes, but you'll have to go over it all again together sometime, if I am to write it up. There are whole chapters of stuff before you ever got here. Yes, it made quite a long tale, answered Frodo, but the story still does not seem complete to me. I still want to know a good deal, especially about Gandalf. Galdor of the Havens, who sat nearby, overheard him. You speak for me also, he cried, turning to Elrond, he said. The wise may have good reason to believe that the halfling's trove is indeed the great ring of Long Bay. Unlikely, though, that may seem to those who know less. But may we not hear the proofs? And I would ask also this also. What of Saruman? He's learned in lore of the rings, yet he's not among us. What is his counsel, if he knows the things that we have heard? The questions that you ask Galdor are bound together, said Elrond. I had not overlooked them, and they shall be answered. These things it is the part of Gandalf to make clear, and I call upon him last, for it is the place of honour, and in all this matter he has been the chief. Some, Galdor, said Gandalf, think the tidings of Gloin, the pursuit of Frodo, prove enough that the halfling's trove is a thing of great worth to the enemy. Yet it is a ring. What then? The 9 the Nazgul keep, the 7 are taken or destroyed. At this Gloin stirred but did not speak. The 3 we know of. Then is this one that he desires so much. There is indeed a wide waste of time between the river and the mountain, between the loss and the finding. But the gap in the knowledge of the wise has been filled at last, yet too slowly. The enemy has been close behind, closer even than I feared. And well it is that not until this year, this very summer as it seems, did he learn the full truth. Some here will remember that many years ago I myself dared to pass the doors of the necromancer in Dol Guldur, and secretly explored his ways. and thus found that our fears were true. It was none other than Sauron, our enemy of old, at length taking shape and power again. Some too will remember, also, that Saruman dissuaded us from open deeds against him, and for long we watched him only, yet at last his shadow grew. Saruman yielded, and the council put forth its strength and drove the evil out of Mirkwood. And that was in the very year of the finding of this ring. Strange chance, if chance it was. But we were too late, as Elrond foresaw. Sauron also had watched us, and had long prepared against our stroke, governing Mordor from afar through Minas Morgul, where his 9 servants dwelt until all was ready. Then he gave way before us, but only feigned to flee, and soon after came to the Dark Tower and openly declared himself. Then for the last time the council met, but now we learned that he was seeking ever more eagerly for the One. We feared then that he had some news of it we knew nothing of, but Saruman said nay, and repeated that what he had said to us before, that the One would never again be found in Middle-earth. At the worst, said he, our enemy knows that we have it not, and that it is still lost. What was lost may yet be found, he thinks. Fear not, his hope would cheat him. Have I not earnestly studied this matter? Into the Anduin the Great it fell, and long ago while Sauron slept, it was rolled down the river to the sea. There let it lie until the end. Okay, it has been an hour. I'm going to take a short break to rest my voice. I will be back and we will continue this chapter, so I will see you all shortly. Alright, it is time we continue. Here we go. Gandalf fell silent, gazing eastward from the porch to the far peaks of the misty mountains, to whose great roots the peril of the world had so long lain hidden. He sighed. There I was at fault, he said. I was lulled by the words of Saruman the Wise, but I should have sought for the truth sooner, and now peril would now be left. You are all at fault, said Elrond, and but for your vigilance, the darkness, maybe, would already be upon us. But say on. From the first, my heart misgave me, against all reason that I knew, said Gandalf, and I desired to know how this thing came to Gollum, and how long he had possessed it. So I set a watch for him, guessing that he would ere long come forth from his darkness to seek for his treasure. He came, but he escaped and was not found. And then, alas, I let the matter rest, watching and waiting only, as we have too often done. Time passed with many cares, until my doubts were awakened again to sudden fear. Whence came the hobbit's ring? What, if my fear was true, should be done with it? Those things I must decide, but I spoke yet of my dread to none, knowing the peril of an untimely whisper if it went astray. In all the long wars with the Dark Tower, treason has ever been our greatest foe. That was 17 years ago. Soon I became aware that spies of many sorts, even beasts and birds, were gathered round the Shire, and my fear grew. I called for the help of the Dunedain, and their watch was doubled, and I opened my heart to Aragorn, the heir of Isildur. And I, said Aragorn, counselled that we should hunt for Gollum, too late though it may seem, and since it seemed fit that Isildur's heir should labour to repair Isildur's fault, I went with Gandalf on the long and hopeless search. Then Gandalf told how they had explored the whole length of Wilderland, even to the mountains of Shadow and the fences of Mordor. There we had rumour of him, and we guessed that he dwelt there long in the dark hills, but we never found him, and at last I despaired. And then in my despair I thought again of a test that might make the finding of Gollum unneeded. The ring itself might tell me if it were the one. The memory of words at the council came back to me. The words of Saruman, half heeded at the time. I heard them now clearly in my heart. The 9, the 7, and the 3, he said, had each their proper gem. Not so the one. It was round and unadorned as it were one of the lesser rings, but its maker set marks upon it that the skilled, maybe, would still see and read. What those marks were he had not said. Who now would know? The maker? And Saruman? Great though his lore may be, he must have a source. What hand, save Sauron's, ever held this thing ere it was lost? The hand of Isildur's alone. With that thought, I forsook the chase and passed swiftly to Gondor. In former days, the members of my order had been well received there, but Saruman most of all. Often he had been for long the guest of the lords of the city. As welcome did Denethor show me than then of old. Grudgingly he permitted me to search among his hoarded scrolls and books. If indeed you look only, as you say, for records of ancient days and the beginnings of the city, read on, he said. For to me, what was is less dark than what is to come, and that is my care. But unless you have more skill even than Saruman, who has studied here long, you will find naught that is not well known to me, who am the master of the lore of this city. So, said Denethor, and yet there lie in his hoards many records that few now can read, even of the lore masters. Their scripts and tongues have become dark to later men. And Boromir there lies in Minas Tirith, still unread, I guess, by any save Saruman and myself, since the kings failed. A scroll that Isildur made himself. For Isildur did not march away straight from the war in Mordor, as some have told the tale. Some in the north, maybe, Boromir broke in. All know in Gondor that he first went to Minas Anor and dwelt a while with his nephew Meneldil, instructing him, for he committed to him the rule of the South Kingdom. In that time, he planted there the last sapling of the White Tree in memory of his brother. But in that time he he made this scroll, said Gandalf. And that is not remembered in Gondor, it would seem, for this scroll concerns the ring, and thus Isildur therein. And thus wrote Isildur therein. The great ring shall go now to be an heirloom of the North Kingdom, but records of it shall be left in Gondor, where also dwell the heirs of Elendil, lest the time come when the memory of these great matters shall grow dim. Oh, sure. I pulled a raffle full of hours. I'd be happy to, though I don't know how I entered. Okay. I'll DM you later. I'll pop into stream. Don't worry. And after these words, Isildur described the ring, such as he found it. It was hot when I first took it, hot as a glade, and my hand was scorched, so that I doubt if ever again I shall be free of the pain of it. Yet even as I write, it is cold, and it seemeth to shrink. It loseth neither its beauty nor its shape. Already the writing upon it, which at first was as clear as red flame, fadeth, and is now only barely to be read. It is fashioned in an elven script of Varation. They have no letters in Mordor for such subtle work. The language is unknown to me. I deem it to be a tongue of the Black Land, since it is foul and uncouth. What evil it saith I do not know. I trace here a copy of it, lest it fade beyond recall. Ring misseth maybe the heat of Sauron's hand. It was black and yet burned like fire. And so Gil-galad was destroyed, and maybe were the gold made hot again, the writing would be refreshed. But for my part, I will risk no hurt to this thing. Of all the works of Sauron, the only fair, it is precious to me, though I buy it with great pain. Oh, hello, you're still here, Soda. Are you enjoying yourself? When I read these words, my quest was ended. The traced writing was indeed as Isildur guessed, in the tongue of Mordor and the servants of the tower. And what was said therein was already known. For in the day that Sauron first put on the one, Celebrimbor, maker of the three, was aware of him, and from afar he heard him speak these words, though his evil purposes were revealed. At once I took my leave of Denethor, but even as I went northwards, messages came to me out of Lorien that Aragorn had passed that way, and that he had found a creature called Gollum. Therefore I went first to meet him and hear his tale. Into what deadly perils he had gone alone I dared not guess. There is little need to tell of them, said Aragorn. If a man must needs walk in sight of the Black Gate or tread the deadly flowers of Morgul Vale, then perils he will have. I too despaired at last, and I began my homeward journey. And then, by fortune, I came suddenly on what I sought, the marks of soft feet beside a muddy pool. But now the trail was fresh and swift, and it led not to Mordor but away, along the skirts of the dead marsh as I followed it. And then I had him, lurking by a stagnant mere, peering in the water as the dark eve fell. I caught him, Gollum. He was covered in green slime. He will never love me, I fear, for he bit me, and I was not gentle. Nothing more did I ever get from his mouth than the marks of his teeth. I deemed it the worst part of all my journey, the road back, watching him day and night, making him walk before me with a halter in his neck, gagged until he was tamed by lack of drink and food, driving him ever towards Mirkwood. I brought him there at last, and gave him to the elves, for we had agreed that this should be done, and I was glad to be rid of his company, for he stank. For my part, I hoped never to look upon him again. Gandalf came, and endured long speech with him. Yes, long and weary, said Gandalf, but not without profit. For one thing, the tale he told of his loss agreed with that which Bilbo has now told openly for the first time. That mattered little, since I had already guessed it. But I learned then first that Gollum's ring came out of the great river nigh to the Gladden fields, and I learned also that he possessed it long, many lives of his small kind. The power of the ring had lengthened his years far beyond their span. That power only the great rings wield. And if that is not proof enough, Galdor, there is the other test that I spoke of. On this very ring, have here seen, held aloft, round and unadorned, the letters that Isildur reported may still be read, if one has the strength of will to set the golden thing in the fire a while. That I have done, and this I have read. Okay, that is black speech. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. The change in the wizard's voice was astounding. Suddenly, it became menacing, powerful, harsh as stone. Shadow seemed to pass over the high sun, and the porch for a moment grew dark. All trembled, and the elves stopped their ears. Never before has any voice dared to utter words of that tongue in him Imladris, Gandalf the Grey, said Elrond as the shadow passed, and the company breathed once more. And let us hope that none will ever speak it again, answered Gandalf. Nonetheless, I do not ask your pardon, Master Elrond, for if that tongue is not soon to be heard in every corner of the West, then let all put doubt aside that this thing is indeed what the wise have declared, the treasure of the enemy, fraught with all his malice, and in it lies a great part of his strength. Of old, out of the black years come the words that the smiths of Eregion heard, and knew that they had been betrayed. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Know also, my friends, that I learned more yet from Gollum. He was loath to speak, and his tale was unclear, but it is beyond all doubt he went to Mordor, and there all that he knew was forced from him. The enemy knows now that the one is found, and that it was long in the Shire, and since his servants have pursued it almost to our door, he soon will know already. He may even know, even as I speak. We have it here. I swear, these chapters are getting longer and longer. My poor throat. Okay. I can do this. All sat silent for a while, until at length Boromir spoke. It's a small thing, you say, this Gollum. Small but great in mischief. What became of him? To what doom did you put him? He is in prison, but no worse, said Aragorn. He had suffered much. There is no doubt that he was tormented, and the fear of Sauron lies black on his heart. But I, for one, am glad that he is safely kept by the watchful elves of Mirkwood. His malice is great, and gives him a strength hardly to be believed in one so lean and withered. He could work much mischief still, if he were free, and I do not doubt he was allowed to leave Mordor on some evil errand. Alas, alas, cried Legolas, and in his fair elfish face there was great distress. The tidings that I was sent to bring must now be told. They are not good, but only here have I learned how evil they may seem to this company. Smeagol, who is now called Gollum, has escaped. Escaped, cried Aragorn. That is ill news indeed. We shall all rue it bitterly, I fear. How came the folk of Thranduil to fail in their trust? Not through lack of watchfulness, said Legolas, but perhaps through over-kindliness. And we feared that the prisoner had aid from others, and that more is known of our doings than we could wish. We guarded the creature day and night at Gandalf's bidding, much though we wearied of the task. Gandalf gave us hope still for his cure, and we had not the heart to keep him ever in the dungeons under the earth, where he would fall back into his old black thoughts. But less tender on me, said Gloin with a flash of his eyes, as old memories were stirred of his imprisonment in the deep places of the Elven King's halls. Come, said Gandalf, pray do not interrupt, my good Gloin. That was a regrettable misunderstanding, long set right. All grievances that stand between elves and dwarves that be brought up here, we may as well abandon this council. Gloin rose and bowed, and Legolas continued. In the days of fair weather, we led Gollum through the woods, and there was a high tree standing alone far from the others, which he liked to climb. Often we let him mount up to the highest branches, until he felt the free wind, but we set a guard at the tree's root. One day, he refused to come down, and the guards had no mind to climb after him. He had learned the trick of clinging to boughs with his feet, as well as with his hands, so they sat by the tree far into the night. It was that night of summer, yet moonless and starless, that orcs came on us unawares. We drove them off after some time. They were many and fierce. They came from over the mountains and were unused to the woods. When the battle was over, we found that Gollum was gone, and his guards were slain or taken. It seemed plain to us that the attack had been made for his rescue, and that he knew of it beforehand. What was contrived we cannot guess. Gollum is cunning, and the spies of the enemy are many. The dark things that were driven out in the year of the dragon's fall have returned in greater numbers, and Mirkwood is again an evil place, save where our realm is maintained. We failed to recapture Gollum. We came on his trail among those of many orcs, and it plunged deep into the forest, going south. But ere long it escaped our skill. We dared not continue the hunt, for we were drawing nigh to Dol Guldur, and that is still a very evil place. We do not go that way. Well, well, he is gone, said Gandalf. We have no time to seek for him again. We must do what he will. He may play a part yet that neither he nor Sauron have foreseen. Now I will answer Galdor's other questions. What of Saruman? What are his counsels to us in this need? This tale I must tell in full, for only Elrond has heard it yet, and in brief, but it will bear on all that we must resolve. It is the last chapter in the Tale of the Ring, so far as it is yet gone. Hot honey water would be delightful right now. I'll get right onto it. I don't think we have any honey. I'll push on. I need to use my water anyway. At the end of June I was in the Shire, but a cloud of anxiety was on my mind, and I rode to the southern borders of the little land, for I had a foreboding of some danger, still hidden from me but drawing near. There messages reached me telling me of the war and defeat in Gondor, and when I heard of the Black Shadow a chill smote my heart. What? The elevator is crashing down, is it? Well, then you better evacuate. Day. Hello, everyone. Hello, Pada. Hello, Cherry. Hello, Yuyu. Hello, Maki. Apology for the lack of alerts. I always turn them off for the reading streams. Soup. I could do with some soup here. My throat is beginning to get sore because it turns out this chapter is almost 40 pages. But hello, did you all have a lovely community night? I'm sorry that I couldn't make it. And I heard Maggie took part, which makes me very glad. Don't worry, Soda, we'll get the elevator fixed in no time. Welcome, everyone, welcome. If you don't know me, I am the Prince. I take over from Safi on Fridays, which is our reading stream. And over the past couple months, we have been reading The Fellowship of the Ring. In fact, we are over halfway through it. We are currently on page 287, on chapter 14. I think we're doing quite well. I hope you all had a lovely time with Cherry. He's an absolute sweetheart. Now then. There, messages reached me telling me of war and defeat in Gondor. And when I heard of the Black Shadow, a chill smote my heart. I found nothing, save a few fugitives from the south. Yet it seemed to me that on them sat a fear of which they would not speak. Turned then east and north, and journeyed along the Greenway. Not far from Bree, I came upon a traveller sitting on a bank beside the road, with his horse grazing beside him. It was Radagast the Brown, who at the time dwelt at Rosgobel, near the borders of Mirkwood. He is one of my order, but I had not seen him for many a year. Gandalf, he cried, was seeking you, but I am a stranger in these parts. All I knew was that you might be found in a wild region with the uncouth name of Shire. Your information was correct, I said. We do not put it that way if you were to meet any of the inhabitants. You are near the borders of the Shire now, and what do you want from me? It must be pressing. You were never a traveller, unless driven by great need. I have an urgent errand, he said. My news is evil. Then he looked about him as if the hedges might have ears. Nazgul, he whispered. The Nine are abroad again. They have crossed the river secretly and are moving westward. They have taken the guise of riders in black. I knew then what I had dreaded without knowing it. The enemy must have some great need or purpose, said Radagast, but what it is makes him look to these distant and desolate parts, I cannot guess. What do you mean, said I. I've been told wherever they go, the riders ask for news of a land called Shire. The Shire, I said, but my heart sank, for even the wise might fear to withstand the Nine, when they are gathered together under their felt chieftain. A great king and sorcerer he was of old, and now he wields a deadly fear. Who told you, and who sent you? I asked. Saruman the White, answered Radagast, and he told me to say that if you feel the need, he will help. You must seek his aid at once, or it will be too late. And that message brought me hope. Saruman the White is the greatest of my order. Radagast is, of course, a worthy wizard, a master of shapes and changes of hue. He has much lore of herbs and beasts and birds are especially his friends. Saruman has long studied the arts of the enemy himself, and thus we have often been able to forestall him. It was by the devices of Saruman that we drove him from Dol Guldur. It might be that he has found some weapons that would drive back the Nine. I will go to Saruman, I said. Then you must go now, said Radagast, for I have wasted time in looking for you, and the days are running short. I was told to find you before midsummer, and that is now here. Even if you set out from this spot, you will hardly reach before the Nine discover the land they seek. I myself will turn back at once, and with that he mounted and would have ridden straight off. Stay a moment, I said. We shall need your help and the help of all things that we give it. Send out messages to all the beasts and birds to your friends. Tell them to bring news of anything that bears on this matter to Saruman and Gandalf. Let messages be sent to Orthanc. I will do that, he said, and rode off as if the Nine were after him. I could not follow him then and there. I had ridden very far already that day, and I was weary as my horse, and I needed to consider matters. I stayed the night in Bree, and decided that I had no time to return to the Shire. Never did I make a greater mistake. However, I wrote a message to Frodo and trusted to my friend the innkeeper to send it to him. I rode away at dawn, and I came at long last to the dwelling of Saruman. That is far south in Isengard, in the end of the Misty Mountains, not far from the Gap of Rohan. Boromir will tell you that it is a great open vale that lies between the Misty Mountains and the northernmost foothills of Ered Nimbraeus, the White Mountains of his home. Isengard is a circle of sheer rocks that enclose a valley, as with a wall, and in the midst of that valley is a tower of stone called Orthanc. It was not made by Saruman, but by the men of Númenor long ago, and it is very tall and has many secrets, yet it looks not to be a work of craft. It cannot be reached save by passing the circle of Isengard, and in that circle there is only one gate. Late one evening I came to the gate, like a great arch in the wall of rock, and it was strongly guarded, but the keepers of the gate were on watch for me, and told me that Saruman awaited me. I rode under the arch, and the gate closed silently behind me, and suddenly I was afraid, though I knew not the reason for it. I rode to the foot of Orthanc, and came to the stair of Saruman, and there he met me, and led me up to his high chamber. He wore a ring on his finger. "So you have come, Gandalf," he said to me gravely, but in his eyes there seemed to be a white light, as if a cold laughter was in his heart. "Yes, I have come," I said. "I have come for your aid, Saruman the White." And that title seemed to anger him. "You have indeed Gandalf the Grey," he scoffed. "For aid? It is seldom we'd heard of that Gandalf the Grey sought for aid. One so cunning and so wise, wandering about the lands, concerning himself with every business, whether it belongs to him or not." I looked at him and wondered. "But if I am not deceived," said I, "things are now moving which will require the union of all our strength." "Maybe so," he said, "but the thought is late in coming to you. How long, I wonder, have you concealed from me the head of the council, a matter of greatest import? What brings you now from your lurking place in the Shire?" "The Nine have come forth," I answered. They have crossed the river, so Radagast said to me. Radagast the Brown, laughed Saruman, and he no longer concealed his scorn. Radagast the bird tamer, Radagast the simple, Radagast the fool. Yet he had just the wit to play the part I set him. But you have come, and that was all the purpose of my message. And here you will stay, Gandalf the Grey, and rest from journeys, for I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman Ringmaker, Saruman of many colours. I looked then and saw that his robes, which had seemed white were not, but were woven of all colours, as if they moved, shimmered, and changed hue so that the eye was bewildered. I liked white better, I said. White, he sneered, it serves as a beginning. White cloth may be dyed, the white page can be overwritten, and the white light can be broken. In which case it is no longer white, said I, and he that breaks a thing to find out what it is left the path of wisdom. You need not speak to me as one of the fools that you take for friends, said he. I have not brought you hither to be instructed by you, but to give you a choice. He drew himself up then and began to declaim as if he were making a speech long rehearsed. The elder days are gone, the middle days are passing, the younger days are beginning. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand. The world of men which we must rule. We must have power, power to order all things as we will, that good which only the wise can see. Listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper, he said, coming near and speaking now in a softer voice. Said we. Well, we it may be, if you will join me. A new power is rising. Against it the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numenor. This then is the one choice before you. For us. We may join with that power. It would be wise, Gandalf. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand, and there will be rich reward for those that aided it. As the power grows, its true friends will also grow, and the wise, such as you and I, may with patience come at last to direct its courses, to control it. We can bide our time. We can keep our thoughts in our hearts, deploring maybe evils done by the way, but proving the high and ultimate purpose. Knowledge, rule, order, all the things that we have so far striven in vain to accomplish, hindered rather than helped by our weak and or idle friends. There would not be any real change in our designs, only our means. Thank you for following me, Jess. Welcome, welcome. Saruman, I said. I've heard speeches of this kind before, but only in the mouths of emissaries sent from Mordor to deceive the ignorant. I cannot think that you brought me so far only to weary my ears. He looked at me sidelong and paused a while considering. Well, I see that this wise course does not commend itself to you, he said. Not yet. Not if some better way can be contrived. Came and laid his long hand on my arm. Why not, Gandalf, he whispered. Why not? The ruling ring. If we could command that, then the power would pass to us. That is in truth why I brought you here, for I have many eyes in my service, and I believe that you know where this precious thing now lies. Is it not so? Or why do the nine ask for the Shire? And what is your business there? As he said this, a lust which he could not conceal shone suddenly in his eyes. Saruman, I said, standing away from him, only one hand at a time can wield the one, you know that well, so do not trouble to say we. But I would not give it nay. I would not give even news of it to you, now that I learn your mind. You were head of the council, but now you have unmasked yourself at last. Well, the choices are, it seems, to submit to Sauron or to yourself. I will take up neither. Have you others to offer? He was cold now and perilous. Yes, he said. I did not expect you to show wisdom, even in your own behalf, but I gave you the chance of aiding me willingly, and so saving yourself much trouble and pain. The third choice is to stay here until the end. Until what end? Until you reveal to me where the one may be found. I may find the means to persuade you, or until it is found in your despite, and the ruler has time to learn to turn to lighter matters, to devise, say, a fitting reward for the hindrance and insolence of Gandalf the Grey. That he may not prove to be one of the lighter matters. That may not prove to be one of the lighter matters, said I. He laughed at me, for my words were empty, and he knew it. Okay, please give me just another moment. I need to refill my water very quickly. I return. Excellent. Let us continue. They took me, and they set me alone on the pinnacle of Orthanc, in a place where Saruman was accustomed to watch the stars. There is no descent save by a narrow stair of many thousand steps, and the valley below seems far away. I looked on it and saw that, whereas it had once been green and fair, now filled with pits and forges, wolves and orcs were housed in Isengard, for Saruman was mustering a great force on his own account in rivalry of Saruman, and ye not in his service yet. Over all the works a dark smoke hung and wrapped itself around the sides of Orthanc. I stood alone on an island in the clouds, and I had no chance of escape, and my days were bitter. I was pierced with cold, and I had but little room in which to pace to and fro, brooding on the coming of the riders of the north. That the Nine had indeed arisen I felt assured, apart from the words of Saruman, which might be lies. Long ere I came to Isengard I had heard tidings by the way that could not be mistaken. Fear was ever in the hearts for my friends in the Shire, but still I had some hope. I hoped that Frodo had set forth at once, as my letter had urged, and that he had reached Rivendell before the deadly pursuit began. And both my fear and my hope proved ill-founded. My hope was founded on a fat man in Bree, and my fear was founded on the cunning of Sauron. Fat men who sell ale have many calls to answer, and the power of Sauron is still less than fear makes it. But in the circle of Isengard, trapped and alone, it was not easy to think that the hunters before whom all have fled or fallen would falter in the Shire far away. "I saw you," cried Frodo. "You were walking backwards and forwards. The moon shone in your hair." Gandalf paused, astonished, and looked at him. "It was only a dream," said Frodo, "but it suddenly came back to me. I'd quite forgotten it. It came some time ago, after I left the Shire, I think." "Then it was late in the coming," said Gandalf, "as you will see. I was in an evil plight, and those who know me will agree that I have seldom been in such need, and do not bear such misfortune well. Gandalf the Grey caught like a fly in a spider's treacherous web. Yet even the most subtle spiders may leave a weak thread. At first, I feared, as Saruman no doubt intended, that Radagast had also fallen, yet I have caught no hint of anything wrong in his voice or in his eye at our meeting. If I had, I should never have gone to Isengard, or should have gone more warily. So Saruman guessed, and he had concealed his mind and deceived his messenger. It would have been useless in any case to try and win over the honest Radagast's treachery. He sought me in good faith, and so persuaded me. That was the undoing of Saruman's plot, though Radagast knew no reason why he should not do as I asked, and he rode away towards Mirkwood, with his many friends of old, and the eagles of the Misty Mountains went far and wide, and they saw many things, the gathering of wolves and the mustering of orcs, and the 9 riders going hither and thither in the lands, and they heard the news of the escape of Gollum, and they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. So it was that when summer waned, there came a night of moon, and Gwahir, the Windlord, swiftest of the great eagles, came unlooked for to Orthanc, and he found me standing on the pinnacle. Then I spoke to him, and he bore me away before Saruman was aware. I was far from Isengard, ere the wolves and orcs issued from the gate to pursue me. "How far can you bear me?" I said to Gwahir. "Many leagues," he said, "but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens." "But I must have a steed on land," I said, "and a steed surely passing swift, for I have never had such need of haste before." "I will bear you to Edoras, where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls, but that is not very far off." And I was glad, for in the Riddermark of Rohan, the Rohirrim, the horse lords, dwell, and there are no horses like those that are bred in that great vale between the Misty Mountains and the White. "Are the men of Rohan still to be trusted, do you think?" I said to Gwahir, for the treason of Saruman had shaken my faith. "They pay tribute of horses," he answered, "and send yearly to Mordor, or so it is said. They are not yet under the yoke. But if Saruman has become evil as you say, then their doom cannot long be delayed." He set me down in the land of Rohan ere dawn. Now I have lengthened my tale overlong. The rest must be more brief. In Rohan I found evil already at work. The lies of Saruman and the king of the land would not listen to my warning. He bade me take a horse and be gone, and I chose one much to my liking. but little to his. I took the best horse in his land, and I have never seen the like of him. Then you must be a noble beast indeed, said Aragorn. It grieves me more that many tidings that might seem worse to learn that Sauron levies such tribute. It was not so when I last was in that land. Nor it is now, I will swear it, said Boromir. It is a lie that comes from the enemy. I know the men of Rohan, true and valiant, our allies dwelling still in the lands that we gave them long ago. The shadow of Mordor lies on distant lands, answered Aragorn. Saruman has fallen under it. Rohan is beset. Who knows what you will find there, if you ever return? Not this, at least, said Boromir, that they will buy their lives with horses. They love their horses next to their kin, and not without reason, for the horses of the Riddermark come from the fields of the north, far from the shadow, and their race, as that of their masters, is descended from the free days of old. True indeed, said Gandalf, and there is one among them that might have been foaled in the morning of the world. The horses of the Nine cannot vie with him, tireless, swift as the flowing river, Shadowfax they call him. By day his coat glistens like silver, by night it is like a shade, and he passes unseen. Light is his footfall, never before had any man mounted him, but I took him, and I tamed him, and so speedily he bore me, that I reached the Shire when Frodo was on the Barry Downs, though I set out from Rohan only when he set out from Hobbiton. But fear grew in me as I rode. Ever as I came north I heard tidings of the riders, and though I gained on them day by day, they were ever before me. They had divided their forces, I learned. Some remained on the eastern borders not far from the Greenway, and some invaded the Shire from the south. I came to Hobbiton, and Frodo had gone, but I had words with old Gamgee. Many words, and few to the point. He had much to say about the shortcomings of the new owners of Bag End. I can't abide changes, he said. Not at my time of life, and least of all changes for the worse. Changes for the worst, he repeated many times. Worst is a bad word, I said to him, and I hope you do not live to see it. But amidst his talk I gathered at last that Frodo had left Hobbiton less than a week before, and that a black horseman had come to the hill the same evening. Then I rode on in fear. I came to Buckland and found it in an uproar, as busy as a hive of ants that had been stirred with a stick. I came to the house at Crick Hollow, and it was broken open and empty, but on the threshold there lay a cloak that had been Frodo's. Then, for a while, hope left me. I did not wait to gather news, or I might have been comforted. But I rode on the trail of the riders. It was hard to follow, for it went many ways, and I was at a loss. But it seemed to me that one or two had ridden towards Bree, and that way I went, for I thought of the words that might be said to the innkeeper. Whatever they call him, thought I. If this delay was his fault, I will melt all the butter in him. I will roast the old fool over a slow fire. He expected no less, and when he saw my face, he fell down flat and began to melt on the spot. What did you do to him? Cried Frodo in alarm. He was really kind to us and did all that he could. Gandalf laughed. Do not be afraid, he said. I did not bite, and I barked very little. So overjoyed was I by the news that I got out of him when he stopped quaking, that I embraced the old fellow. How it happened I could not guess, but I learned that you had been in Bree the night before, and had gone off that morning with Strider. Strider, I cried, shouting for joy. Yes, sir, I am afraid so, sir, said Butterburn mistakenly. He got at them, and in spite of all that I could do, they took up with him. They behaved very, very queer all the time they were here. Wilful, you might say, ass, fool, price-worthy, and beloved Ballerman, said I. It is the best news I have had since midsummer. It is worthy of a gold piece at least. May your beer be laid under an enchantment of surpassing excellence for 7 years, said I. Now I can take a night's rest, the first since I have forgotten when. Sorry. So I stayed there that night, wondering what had become of the riders, for only 2 had been there, yet been there. Or only of 2 had there yet been any news in Bree, it seemed. In the night we heard more. 5 at least came from the west, and they threw down the gates and passed through Bree like a howling wind. And the Bree folk are still shivering and expecting the end of the world. I got up before dawn and went after them. I do not know, but it seemed clear to me that this is what happened. The captain remained in secret away south of Bree, while 2 rode ahead through the village, and 4 more invaded the Shire. But when these were foiled in Bree and at Crick Hollow, they returned to their captain with tidings, and so left the road unguarded for a while. except by their spies. The captain then sent some eastward straight across the country, and he himself with the rest rode along the road in great wrath. I galloped weathertop like a gale, and I reached it before sundown on my second day from Bree, and there they were before me. They drew away from me, for they felt the coming of my anger, and they dared not face it while the sun was in the sky. But they closed round at night, and I was besieged on the hilltop, in the old ring of Amansul. It's hard put to it indeed. Such light and flame cannot have been seen on weathertop since the war beacons of old. At sunrise I escaped and fled towards the north. I could not hope to do more. It was impossible to find you, Frodo, in the wilderness, and it would have been folly to try with all the 9 at my heels. So I had to trust to Aragorn, but I hoped to draw some of them off, and yet reach Rivendell ahead of you, and send out help. 4 riders did indeed follow me. They turned back after a while, and made for the ford, it seems. That helped a little, for there were only 5, not 9, when your camp was attacked. We reached here at last by a long, hard road up the Horwell and through the Etten moors, and down from the north. It took me nearly 14 days from Weathertop, for I could not ride among the rocks of the Trollfells, and Shadowfax departed. I sent him back to his master, but a great friendship has grown between us, and if I have need, he will come at my call. So it was that I came to Rivendell only 3 days before the ring, and the news of its peril had already been brought here, which proved well indeed. And that, Frodo, is the end of my account. May Elrond and the others forgive the length of it. Such a thing has not happened before. Gandalf broke tryst and did not come when he promised. An account to the ring-bearer of so strange an event was required, I think. Well, the tale is now told from first to last. Here we all are, and here is the ring. We have not yet come any nearer to our purpose. What shall we do with it? Pardon me. There was a silence. At last Elrond spoke again. This is grievous news concerning Saruman, he said. We trusted him, and he is deep in all our counsels. It is perilous to study too deeply the arts of the enemy, for good or for ill. Such falls and betrayals, alas, have happened before. The tales that we have heard this day, the tale of Frodo was most strange to me. I have known few hobbits save Bilbo here, and it seems to me that he is perhaps not so alone and singular as I had thought him. The world has changed much since I was last on the westward roads. The Barrow Wights we know by many names, and of the old forest many tales have been told. All that now remains is but an outlier of its northern march. Time was when a squirrel could go from tree to tree from what is now the Shire to Dunland, west of Isengard. In those lands I journeyed once, and many things wild and strange I knew, but I had forgotten Bombadil, if indeed this is still the same that walked the woods and hills long ago, and even then was older than the old. Was not his name? Yerwin Benadar called him, oldest and fatherless, but many another name he has been since given by other folk, born by the dwarves, Orld by the northern men, and other names besides. He is a strange creature, but maybe I should have summoned him to our council. He would not have come, said Gandalf. Could we not still send messages to him and obtain his help? Asked Erestor. Seems that he has power even over the ring. No, I should not put it so, said Gandalf. Say rather that the ring has no power over him. He's his own master, but he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he is withdrawn into a little land, within bounds that he has set, though none can see them, waiting perhaps for a change of days, and he will not step beyond them. But within those bounds, nothing seems to dismay him, said Erestor. Would he not take the ring and keep it there forever harmless? No, said Gandalf, not willingly. He might do so if all the free folk of the world begged him, but he would not understand the need, and if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it, most likely throw it away. Such things have no hold on his mind. He would be a most unsafe guardian, and that alone is answer enough. But in any case, said Glorfindel, to send the ring to him would only postpone the day of evil. He is far away. We could not take it back to him, unguessed, unmarked by any spy. And even if we could, soon or late the Lord of the Rings would learn of its hiding place, and would bend all his power towards it. Would that power be defied by Bombadil alone? I think not. I think that in the end, if all else is conquered, Bombadil will fall, last as he was first, and then night will come. I know little of Irowen, save the name, said Galdor, but Glorfindel, I think, is right. The power to defy our enemy is not in him, unless such power is in the earth itself. And yet we see that Sauron can torture and destroy the very hills. Power lies with us, here in Imladris, or with Círdan, at the Havens, or in Lorien. But have they the strength? Have we here the strength to withstand the enemy, the coming of Sauron at the last when all is overthrown? I have not the strength, said Elrond, neither have they. Then if the ring cannot be kept from him forever by strength, said Glorfindel, two things only remain for us to attempt: to send it over to the sea, or to destroy it. But Gandalf has revealed to us that we cannot destroy it by any craft that we here possess, said Elrond, and they who dwelt beyond the sea would not receive it. For good or for ill, it belongs to Middle-earth, and it is for us, who still dwell here, to deal with it. Then, said Glorfindel, let us cast it into the deeps, and so make the lies of Saruman come true. For it is clear now that even at the council his feet were already on a crooked path. He knew that the ring was not lost forever, but wished for us to think so. He began to lust for it for himself. Yet oft in lies truth is hidden. In the sea it would be safe. Not forever, said Gandalf. There are many things in the deep waters, and seas and lands may change, and it is not our part here to take thought only of a season, or for a few lives of men, or for a passing of age of the world. We should seek a final end of this menace, even if we do not hope to make one. And that we shall not find on the roads to the sea, said Gandalf. If the return to Irowen be thought too dangerous, then the flight to the sea is now fraught with the gravest peril. My heart tells me that Sauron will expect us to take the western way when he learns what has befallen. He soon will. The Nine have been unhorsed indeed. That is but a respite. Ere they find new steeds and swifter. Only the waning might of Gondor stands now between him and a marching power along the coasts into the north, and if he comes, assailing the white towers and the havens, hereafter the elves may have no escape from the lengthening shadows of Middle-earth. Long yet will that march be delayed, said Boromir. Gondor wanes, you say, but Gondor stands, and even the end of its strength is still very strong. And yet its vigilance can no longer keep back the Nine, said Galdor, and other roads you may find that Gondor does not guard. Then, said Erestor, there are but two courses, as Glorfindel has already declared. To hide the ring forever, to unmake it, but both are beyond our power. Who will read this riddle for us? None here can do so, said Elrond gravely. At least none can foretell what will come to pass, if we take this road or that. But it seems to me now clear which is the road that we must take. The westward road seems easiest, therefore it must be shunned. It will be watched. Too often have the elves fled that way. Now at this last we must take a hard road, a road unforeseen. There lies our hope, if hope it be, walk into peril, to Mordor. We must send the ring to the fire. Silence fell again. Frodo, even in that fair house, looking out upon a sunlit valley filled with the noise of clear waters, felt the dead darkness in his heart. Boromir stirred, and Frodo looked to him. He was fingering his great horn and frowning. At length he spoke. I do not understand all this, he said. Saruman is a traitor, but did he not have a glimpse of wisdom? Why do you ever speak of destroying and hiding? Why should we not think that the great ring has come into our hands to serve us in the very hour of need? Wielding it in the free lands of the free may surely defeat the enemy. That is what he fears, I deem. The men of Gondor are valiant, and they will never submit. But they may have been beaten down. But they may be beaten down. Valor needs first strength and then a weapon. Let the ring be our weapon. If it has such power as you say, take it and go forth to victory. Alas, no, said Elrond. We cannot use the ruling ring. That we know too well. That we now know too well. It belongs to Sauron and was made by him alone, and is altogether evil. Its strength, Boromir, is too great for anyone to wield at will, save only those who have already a great power of their own. But for them it holds an even deadlier peril. The very desire of it corrupts the heart. Consider Saruman. If any of the wise should with this ring overthrow the Lord of Mordor, using his own arts, he would then set himself on Sauron's throne, and yet another Dark Lord would appear. And that is another reason why the ring should be destroyed. As long as it is in the world, it will be a danger even to the wise. And nothing is evil in the beginning. Even Sauron was not so. Fear to take the ring to hide it. I will not take the ring to wield it. Nor I, said Gandalf. Boromir looked at them doubtfully, but he bowed his head. So be it, he said. Then in Gondor we must trust to such weapons as we have, and at the least, while the wise ones guard this ring, we will fight on. Mayhap the sword that was broken may still stem the tide, if the hand that wields it has inherited not an heirloom only, but the sinews of the kings of men. Who can tell, said Aragorn, but we will put it to the test one day. May the day not be too long delayed, said Boromir, for though I do not ask for aid, we need it. It would comfort us to know that others fought also with all the means that they have. Then be comforted, said Elrond, for there are other powers and realms that you know not, and they are hidden from you. And when the great flows past many shores, ere it comes to Argonath and the gates of Gondor. Still, it might be well for all, said Glóin the dwarf. If all these strengths were joined and the powers of each were used in league, other rings there may be, less treacherous, that might be used in our need. The seven are lost to us. If Balin has not found the ring of Thror, which was the last, naught has been heard of it since Thror perished in Moria. Indeed, I may now reveal that it was partly in hope to find that ring that Balin went away. Balin will find no ring in Moria, said Gandalf. Thror gave it to his son Thrain, but not Thrain to Thorin. It was taken with torment from Thrain in the dungeons of Dol Guldur. I came too late. Ah, alas, cried Glóin, when will the day come of our revenge? But still there are the three. What of the 3 rings of the elves? Very mighty rings, it is said. Do not the elf lords keep them? Yet they too were made by the Dark Lord long ago. Are they idle? I see elf lords here. Will they not say? The elves returned no answer. Did you not hear me, Glóin, said Elrond. The 3 were not made by Sauron, nor did he ever touch them, but of them it is not permitted to speak. So much only in this hour of doubt I may now say. They are not idle, but they were not made as weapons of war or conquest. That is not their power. Those who made them did not desire strength or domination, or hoarded wealth, but understanding, making and healing, to preserve all things unstained. These things the elves of Middle-earth have in some measure gained, though with sorrow. But all that has been wrought by those who wield the 3 will turn to what their undoing, and their minds and hearts will become revealed to Sauron, if he regains the One Ring. It would be better if the 3 had never been. That is his purpose. Then what would happen if the ruling ring were destroyed as was your counsel? Asked Glóin. You know not for certain, answered Elrond sadly. Some hope that the 3 rings, which Sauron has never touched, would then become free, and their rulers might heal the hurts of the world that he has wrought. But maybe when the One Ring is gone, the 3 will fail, and many fair things will fade and be forgotten. That is my belief. Yet all the elves are willing to endure this chance, said Glorfindel. If by it the power of Sauron may be broken, and the fear of his dominion be taken away forever. Thus we return once more to the destroying of the ring, said Erestor, and yet we come no nearer. What strength have we for the finding of the fire in which it was made? That is the path of despair. Of folly, I would say, if the long wisdom of Elrond did not forbid me. Despair or folly, said Gandalf. It is not despair, for despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. We do not. It is wisdom to recognize necessity, when all other courses have been weighed. Though as folly it may appear to those who cling to false hope. Well, let folly be our cloak, a veil before the eyes of the enemy. For he is very wise, and weighs all things to a nicety in the scales of his malice. The only measure that he knows is his desire for power, and so he judges all hearts. Into his heart the thought will not enter that any will refuse it, that having the ring we may seek to destroy it. If we seek this, we shall put him out of reckoning. At least for a while, said Elrond. The road must be trod, but it will be very hard, and neither strength nor wisdom will carry us far upon it. This quest may be attempted by the weak, with as much hope as the strong. Yet such is oft the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. Very well, Master Elrond, said Bilbo suddenly. Say no more. It is plain enough what you are pointing at. Bilbo, the silly hobbit, started this affair, and Bilbo had better finish it, or himself. I was very comfortable here, and getting on with my book, if you want to know. I'm just writing an ending for it. I had thought of putting, and he lived happily ever after to the end of his days. It is a good ending, none the worse for having been used before. Now I shall have to alter it. It does not look like coming true. And anyway, there will evidently have to be several more chapters, if I live to write them. It is a frightful nuisance. When ought I to start? Boromir looked in surprise at Bilbo, but the laughter died on his lips when he saw that all the others regarded the old hobbit with grave respect. Only Gloin smiled, but his smile came from old memories. Of course, my dear Bilbo, said Gandalf. If you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. But you know well enough that starting is too great a claim for any, and that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. You need not bow. Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that, under jest, you are making a valiant offer, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo. You cannot take this thing. It is passed on. If you need my advice any longer, I should say that your part is ended, unless as a recorder. Finish your book and leave the ending unaltered. There is still hope for it, but get ready to write a sequel when they come back. Bilbo laughed. I have never known you to give me pleasant advice before, he said, as all your unpleasant advice has been good. I wonder if this advice is not bad. Still, I don't suppose I have the strength or luck to deal with this ring. It has grown and I have not. But tell me, what do you mean by they? The messengers who were sent with the ring. Exactly, and who are they? That seems to me what this council has to decide, and all has to decide. Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves may endure great weariness, but I am only an old hobbit, and I miss my meal at noon. Can't you think of some names now? Put it off till after dinner. No one answered. The noon bell rang. Still no one spoke. Frodo glanced at all the faces, but they were not turned to him. All the council sat with downcast eyes as if deep in thought. A great dread fell on him, as if he was awaiting the pronouncement of some doom that he had long foreseen, and vainly hoped might after all never be spoken. An overwhelming longing to rest and remain at peace by Bilbo's side and Rivendell filled all his heart. At last with an effort he spoke, and wondered to hear his own words, as if some other will was using his small voice. I will take the ring, he said, though I do not know the way. Elrond raised his eyes and looked at him, and Frodo felt his heart pierced by the sudden keenness of the gaze. If I understand all that I have heard, he said, I think that this task is appointed for you, Frodo, and that if you do not find a way, no one will. This is the hour of the Shire folk, when they arise from their quiet fields to shake the towers and councils of the great. Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? Or if they are wise, why should they expect to know it until the hour has struck? But it is a heavy burden, so heavy that none could lay it on another. I do not lay it on you, but if you take it freely, I will say that your choice is right. And though all the mighty elf friends of old, Hador and Húrin, Túrin and Beren himself are assembled together, your seat should be among them. But you won't send him off alone, surely, Master, cried Sam, unable to contain himself any longer, and jumping up from his corner where he had been quietly sitting on the floor. No, indeed, said Elrond, turning towards him with a smile. You at least shall go with him. It is hardly possible to separate you from him, even when he is summoned to a secret council, and you are not. Sam sat down blushing and muttering. A nice pickle we have landed ourselves in, Mr. Frodo, he said, shaking his head. Done. We are now up to page 305. And my throat is going. So if you don't mind, I would like to end stream here. Throat very much needs its rest now. I do hope you enjoyed that chapter, despite how long it was. But I hope you enjoyed it, Positronic. I am a bit too tired to raid today, however, so I will just quietly end it here if that's quite alright. I hope you all look after yourself. Be sure to hydrate and eat and rest. And I should see you all next week.